Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. Hey, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be hosting Archery Talk 101, and we have Jeff on the line with us, and we're going to hear some really exciting stories from him today. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it, man.
Tell us a little something about yourself so we get to kind of know you a little bit better.
Well, my background is relatively diverse. Most of it really does encompass the fishing world, but I've got a lot of history in the hunting side of things. Not only my own personal stuff, but working between archery shops and having the chance to do some television in the archery world as well, and having a lot of fun there. But currently, my job is I'm the tournament director for the Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's National Walleye Tour and the Masters Walleye Circuit, as well as the Sturgeon Bay Open Bass Tournament and a number of other events throughout the upper Midwest region.
Keeps you busy during the summer doing a lot of fishing, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. From basically March through October, or at least a part of October, I'm busy quite a bit on the road, and now from that mid-October point through December, I really concentrate a lot on doing some hunting.
That's the nice thing about being in outdoors. You can either fish or hunt every day of the year.
Absolutely.
There's something to fish or hunt.
That's right, and it's fun to be connected in the world too.
Yeah, it is. So how did you get started in archery?
Well, really, archery came about over closer to my adulthood, and it's a shame because when I was growing up, my dad took a lot of time off off of hunting and archery and stuff like that to raise my brother and I, and to back that up a little bit, it was sad that he had to do that because he and his dad, my grandfather, actually had an archery shop right up to about the time I was born. And then, the world kind of falls apart when you have kids. You don't know,
Yeah.
which way is up and how much time you have for everything. But my grandfather and my grandmother actually ran an archery shop for a very long time, and all out of their home. And then my dad picked it up, of course, shot instinctually through longbows and then into recurves. And I had a harder time picking it up. I shoot left-handed. I am left-handed. I shoot left-handed. And at the time when I was, we're talking late 80s, early 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of youth model left-handed bows, especially in that, uh, modern technology realm.
Right.
I did a little bit of instinctual shooting with some long bows, but I didn't get into it a whole lot. And because my dad took time off to raise kids, I wasn't really brought into that archery hunting world at a really young age. I kind of had to pick it up on my own as I into adulthood. And I found some great friends that were great mentors, and of course I could rely on my dad. My grandpa had some stuff sitting around that I was able to talk to him with, and kind of explore and learn a little bit of history of things. But I picked it up as I got into adulthood, and started with some older used equipment, left-hand equipment that was, kind of lying around in people's basements and things like that, and really got to learn what what the development kind of from that recurve technology from the early 90s, and then I progressed kind of along with it as I was able to afford better options. And um and it was in 2017. I had shot a number of different bows through that time period. uh, uh, we had Brownings. We were hunting with bears. We were hunting with, and then got into Forge, which was a bow company out of southeastern Wisconsin. Uh, Hunted with a few of those, shot those for a while, And in 2017, one day I was out shooting bow at my house and shot probably 35, 40 arrows or so that day. Went to draw back at one point and the string let loose. What ended up happening is at some point a small pebble got wrapped in the wax on the cam and sat there running back and forth inside the
Oh,
cam. So it wasn't a place that I could, really visually see well unless I was looking for something specific like that, and actually cut through enough of the string bands to release on. At one point, I punched myself in the face, my shoulder dislocated. It was quite the scene, and since then it's been a matter of trying to build back. It really I've had some shoulder issues even before that, but building that back and getting to use the use of a crossbow for a while and things like that has been helpful to at least be able to get out and hunt. But building that back, and now my son is interested in archery, and he's 10, and probably the largest challenge is getting. He's a real small framed 10-year-old, is finding a bow that's comfortable for him weight wise, posture wise, that he really would have the ability to build into, to do some hunting at some point if he would like here in his early youth seasons. Is um, a lot of the youth bows that you can use at 5 to whatever poundage. What I've noticed is that they're not as balanced. They're not as lightweight as they, probably could be. Of course, you're building something for maybe somebody who doesn't use it for very long before maybe stepping up. But that's one of the challenges that I've noticed in that kind of getting him started in that youth side of things is you can get the really cheap ones, you can get the the Walmart stuff off the shelf, and Genesis makes a nice bow for just doing some target shooting. But once you get into that realm of hunting, it's a little bit more difficult to find.
yeah, that's always the challenge when you have somebody that can't draw a lot of weight, getting a bow that fits them that they can actually shoot and grow with. And now there's several different options you have that'll grow with them. Where the kids can shoot them and adults can shoot them. It's just, you can set the draw length and draw weight goes up as the length goes up. Where
Sure.
you have
Yeah.
challenges when you have an adult that can't pull much weight.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going through obviously when the bow blew up, I mean, I lost parts and pieces and all kinds of things. Uh and searching for a bow that was comfortable at that lightweight, that was accurate enough. You want some speed, you want some accuracy, but when you've got those bows turned down, you typically don't see quite the accuracy that you want to see until you can get them turned up to their peak.
Yeah, they do perform a little bit better when they're up a little bit closer to their peak weight. Um,
Mhm.
Having a bow blow up on you is no fun. I actually had one do that. It wasn't the string breaking, it was the bow breaking in half.
Yeah.
It was the old magnesium risers. It was American Challenger. High Country bought them out, but I'm shooting and I'm getting ready for hunting season, and I'm shooting and I just can't get it sighted in. Every time I shoot and I adjust it, I shoot it, it's off by more, it's off by more. And finally I decide I'm going to go close to the backstop so I can see where it's at. And I shot. And after I shot, I'm holding the bottom half of the bow in my hand, and the top half comes back and smacks me in the chest.
Yeah, and I should have noticed something that day because something was odd about shooting that day. I like I said, I shot 35, 40 arrows, and the reason I was shooting really that much, and this was beginning of August. Usually I'm pretty established. You can shoot around to maybe 10 arrows or so and be fine. Was because something just seemed a little off, and it didn't matter if it was going to happen either that set of arrows or another set that a couple days later. It's just an unfortunate thing to have happen.
Yeah, it's something that we don't always pay attention to, is when something it feels different.
Hmm.
There's something different. There's something going on. And that's something we all need to look at, is something don't feel right on the bow. There's something going on.
Yeah.
We need to start checking it out. And,
Yeah.
I did a podcast earlier, but, about, what do you need to check for you go hunt? And one of the things I went over is you need to wax the string. You need to rub your hands all the way up and down the string. And one thing to mention, the Scorpion makes a really good wax, but they put a piece of leather in there. Take that
Yeah.
piece of leather and throw it away. That's the worst thing you can do to your string, because you can take
Sure.
that leather and rub it up and down. It gets so hot you can actually burn the strings.
Yeah.
You can't do
Yep.
that with your fingers. Really good
Yep.
wax, but get your fingers on the string. You're going to feel any burrs or anything in there.
Yeah.
And then make sure you
Absolutely.
go around, look everything, look at the cams, make sure they're all right. Look at the strings, you look at your sight and make sure there's nothing wrong with your sight. I take just
Yep.
glance at everything. I'm going through and I notice, it's like my third or fourth pin down, the fiber optic had broke off of it. Well, I don't shoot that distance anymore. I'm not going to hunt at that kind of a range. For one,
Sure.
I have trouble seeing that far anymore. So I'm not taking those longer shots. So I'm not going to worry about changing it right now. But if it had been the 20-yard pin, now then that's a different
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you got to try and figure out, okay, how can I change it? Make sure you mark where it goes, take it out, replace it, and put it back in. And but I think it was my 50-yard pin.
Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed most often when I was working at the archery shops, is that we would get some archers that would inspect their bow when they first, take it out of the case. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They were looking at it in July and August. Okay.
Oh,
And, and they would notice something wrong at that point, but really you need to make mental notes of things throughout the season. I got so many times that either I have, or I've watched friends, lowering bows and it hits the side of their tree stand, or gets wrapped up in something when you get it down on the ground or something like that. Those things can make a big difference the next time you take that bow back out. If you've got a small
right.
stick that's in between that string and cam, and it's there because, you properly waxed your bow and there's just, a little bit of wax off the side and that's stuck there. And that really can wreak havoc on you the next time. And obviously, you wouldn't want that if you're out hunting, but safety wise, you don't want something to happen.
Well, and I use a sling when I carry that hooks over both cams, and it
Yeah.
has a little sling, and you could adjust it there and put it over your shoulder. And since I started using that, it's like, oh man, why did I ever walk in without one of them? But it
Sure.
doesn't protect your strings and your sight quite so well.
Yeah.
I think it's Primos makes one. It actually covers your strings as well.
Sure.
So now
Sure.
your strings and cables are protected from brush and stuff in there. And then,
Yep.
worry about your sight. Well, you could put a cover over your sight. Well,
Yeah.
by the time you get all that, why don't you just carry it in your bow case?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. 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 No,
So I don't
you
worry
need to
about
make a
that.
habit. Yeah. You need to make a habit just looking at your stuff and making sure you're observant, I mean, that's what the name of the game is when you're in the woods hunting, is being observant. It starts long before that.
Right. And and I've seen people wax their string, there's just wax caked all over the string. That
Right.
doesn't do you any good, because that's just
Right.
caked on the outside. You've
Yeah.
got to put it
Yeah.
on, just put a little bit on, rub it in. Your fingers will get it warm enough to melt into the strands.
Yeah.
And then, if you have a bunch of cake stuff on it, all you do is waste your wax.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
rub it in. And I tell people, it's like every time you go hunt, go ahead and wax your string, but either the night before or that morning, throw a little wax on it. Not that it has to have wax every time, but you can put your
Right.
fingers on your string every time.
Yeah.
Even if you don't
Yeah.
put wax on it, rub your fingers on it. Just kind of feel it. And if you feel any burrs or if you see any broken strands, that's something to be concerned about, because now your string is degraded,
Yeah.
substantially.
Yeah. It's compromised. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
like
And these are precision weapons these days. I mean, you've really got to be
right.
careful with things. And if you want it to work properly, you need to be checking stuff like that.
Yeah. Check them out and, take some shots. What I used to do is, when I get in a tree stand, I'm going to get my arrow in there and knock it, because I never draw back without an arrow, especially
Sure.
use of release. It's too easy to make it accidentally
Yeah.
fire
Yeah.
it, I'll draw it back, and see how it feels. That also makes sure I can draw it back, because I had one time I couldn't. I hadn't been practicing throughout the season. It was, like December, cold, and
Sure.
I couldn't draw my bow back because I was still cold and it wasn't warmed up. So draw back, make sure everything is there. You can also, during that time, take and move around to different positions to see if there's anything that's going to be in your way. What's going to hit your upper limb or your lower limb?
Sure.
I shot sitting down one time and my lower limb caught the tree stand.
Yeah.
That deer was, probably 10 yards out, and I missed it by 5 yards. I was short by 5 yards because it caught it, threw it right down. That's something you got to look at too.
I shot through the side of a blind one time at a deer at
Oh,
about 8 yards, and I was like, "How did I miss?" And kind of went back into the blind, and oh, I see, just underneath the Velcro strip of the of the window. Yep, it just never put that in my sight picture. When I was sitting there.
Yeah, and I know that's a problem because, try shooting a 5-yard shot.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it unless you know what you're doing, because you're going to have to use probably your 70-yard pin to shoot at 5 yards.
Yep.
Because when people don't realize it, is your eyes is the same level as your sight. Your arrow is down from your eyes to the corner of your mouth. That distance there is, probably 2.5, 3 inches. Yeah. It's below where you're seeing. And, when I in a blind, I was like, okay, and I'm looking at the arrow where the arrow is lined up. I don't care where the sights are. I'm looking for the arrow, because sometimes you got to sit up a little straighter. Sometimes you scrunch down. And he made it sit up a little taller and get in there, or even put a cushion on it to get up high enough that you don't hit your blind, except the part you're supposed to shoot through.
Right.
Yeah,
makes a big difference. I can tell you that from absolute experience. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's like I prefer to hunt out of a tree stand anyway, but you get a lot more visibility. But hey, when it's really cold, it's nice being in a blind.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
in Nebraska.
Yeah. In Wisconsin here, it's the same thing. Get a little cold. And the other thing is because I'm hunting oftentimes with my son. He's been coming hunting with me since he was 3.5, 4 years old. And so, getting a kid that young up into a tree stand safely, quietly is a challenge. So we do a lot of blind hunting right now, with that advantage. So whether I got him set up and the wind is right, I'm going to use it regardless of whether he's with me or not.
Yeah. Well, a nice thing, kids that age, they don't sit as still as we can. Well, sometimes we don't sit very still either. No. But but it does allow them to move around a little bit and not be, it's like, okay, I can't move. I got to be froze. And kids are not going to enjoy that. They want to be able to look around and look at the stuff and have them look. And I know when I took my son out with one time, I was like, I give him the deer call. I says, your job is to call. As if they're coming in, fine. If they're not coming in, they're either going to respond to it or not respond to it.
Yep. Absolutely. Deer are, I think we give them a little too much credit. Oftentimes it's more curiosity that's bringing them in. If you're good at calling at the right time and they're looking to listen for it, well, then you got it made. But otherwise, oftentimes we call too much and it works for us because they're trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I know. I had a couple of does coming by, and this is back when we had 2 tags all we could get, and 2 archer tags either sex. So the first one I just shot deer so I could get meat. The second one I went hunt bucks until December. So I'm hunting most of the the November time frame, just waiting for a buck. And and I heard what it was a doe bleeding. I thought it's just a duck hunter screwing around with their duck call, which I do sometimes when I'm out duck hunting and nothing's flying. I just mess around with the duck call. It's like, who cares, right? And I was like, oh man, that's 2 does. So I got on the grunt call and I went, I didn't even make a decent call. And the doe that was bleeding just kind of kept walking. And the bigger doe that was with her come running underneath my tree stand. I think she hit my pole rope. I'm looking through my tree stand at her. and
Sure.
it wasn't even a decent grunt. It was just all messed up grunt. Yeah,
Sure.
it's like,
Sure.
I just it was a terrible call as far as but she come
Right.
running
Right.
to see what was going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's curiosity sometimes.
yeah, so I'm looking, it's like, and the hunt partner's like, well, just shoot one. No, it wasn't a buck. So I get 2 tags. So I want to hunt until December, and
Right.
then at December time frame, then I'd go ahead and fill it with whatever come by, because
Sure. Sure.
you can't eat tags.
I know. And
I
I've seen a lot of stuff online lately. You're talking about how much the general media and things like that is really uh push this idea and change expectations. I mean, social media has to of what somebody should be shooting. And there's almost guilt and shame if you shoot something that you can't brag about, or you feel like you couldn't brag about on social media. But man, you can't eat a tag. And
no,
and I might hold off for a little while, but I'm happy with anything that I'm going to end up pulling the trigger on. I'm not sitting there ashamed of it.
yeah, and you shouldn't be. When I first started out, I couldn't tell the difference between a fawn and an adult deer. I had no clue how to
Sure.
even tell. And
Yeah.
I've shot some. It's like, oh, okay, roll the dome of it. It's a buck. I'm like, I couldn't figure it out till one time I watched a hunting show, and they actually taught something. No, most
Oh,
hunting shows are just all about them shooting these great big bucks. And
sure.
most of the guys shooting their bows are shooting them incorrectly anyway, but
Yeah.
that's another story. And they said, how do you tell an adult doe from a fawn? You look at the tip of the nose, the back of the head, and the eye position. If it's in the middle, it's a fawn. If it's longer from the eyes to the nose, and it's adult. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, now I can tell that. I can't tell my body size. I hadn't shot enough deer to really know. It's like, okay, this is a big one, a
Sure.
little one, and it was meat. I didn't care.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And if you've got a legal tag, you take it with a legal means, and you get out of it what would like. I mean, go ahead and shoot it. We talk about it all the time with between myself and a group of friends about, you know, there is this matter out there. How do you get somebody into deer hunting right now who hasn't, and all they see is the social media fodder of these big giant bucks, and they walk out on public land or they walk out wherever for the very first time and they don't see anything like that. I feel like that expectation is they failed somehow, that they didn't
Right.
see these deer. And so it'd be hard to get started these days like that.
Well, a lot of those the TV shows and stuff, they have property that's managed fairly well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're not hunting where 1,000 other people hunt. They're not
Right.
hunting a lot of public and some of them do hunt public lands, but most of them are
Sure.
hunting on private property where the herd is managed, where you don't take the little bucks.
Sure.
You let the little bucks go and only take the mature bucks. So now you have a bigger selection of nicer deer. Well,
Right. Right.
unless you want to pay for a lease that has that, most of us
Right.
aren't going to afford to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go hunt where I can hunt for free.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to a farmer and try to eliminate some deer so they don't eat all their crops, because the
Right.
deer eat a lot of their crops. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to go out there. I really don't want to pay for a lease, where you go in and you pay for all this stuff. It'd be nice to have one, but I'm kind of a little bit cheap that way.
Oh, I get it, man.
I have land, one property. It's not real big. It's along a creek, and there's a little bit of trees in there. And most of these crops about 80 acres. Probably
Sure.
about 75 of it's in crop. Then I have another one that is a little bit bigger property, but there's just a tree line edging it. So it's not a great property, but there are deer on them.
Sure.
I'm just going to figure out when they're coming. Nice about trail cameras. You can figure out, okay, they're coming through at night. So,
Sure.
what time am I going to go through? Where can I set up? And, they're coming
Absolutely.
through at night through here. right before hunting time. So if I set up here, then I got a chance at catching them after they've been into the field for a while. And
Sure.
you
Sure.
can kind of figure out. That's nice about trail cameras is you can kind of figure out where they're going instead of sitting there for hours and hours and hours. And
Yeah.
last year in February, what I would have seen my first deer during the daylight.
Yeah.
I can't hunt that time, so
Right. Right. Yeah, it is incredible. I own, our house is on just 5 acres, but we're kind of suburbia in this area. And we get these deer that use our backyard portion quite a bit. And it almost time them sometimes, but they kind of get pushed around with the various random things that happen in a neighborhood.
right.
But it's interesting how even these small properties and stuff like that, the use of the trail cameras, things can make a big difference in whether you kind of burn your day or burn your time, or maybe it's worth investing. We've got a couple of real nice suburban bucks that come through, and they early season. If I hadn't been on the road doing fishing tournaments, I probably would have had a chance at a couple of them deer that had come through. But now it's a matter of they're going on at night, and they may turn around here in the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, during the rut, that kind of changes everything a little bit,
Everything, yeah.
and so maybe that's the time. But unfortunately, here in Nebraska, the rifle hunters get the rut.
Yeah, that's the nice thing in Wisconsin is that if you are an archery hunter, as we get from middle of September until basically the very beginning of January, and in some places the end of January in the state of Wisconsin, to hunt with archery equipment. And our gun deer season begins the week before Thanksgiving, and so we really get that peak chase phase and things like that with our archery equipment, and it's a lot of fun to be out in the woods at that time.
Yeah, our rifle is the second week in November is when it goes for 10 days. Just 1 week back, 1 week later makes a big
Sure.
difference for archery. I know when I was at
Yeah.
Deer Check Station that 1 year that they moved it back a week, and or later in the year, I was amazed at how many archers were bringing in big bucks that week before, which it would have been
Hmm.
rifle season. And rifle, they check in, I wasn't really checking in too many rifle.
Sure.
Because I was archery, I had archery, so a lot of archers would come into me, but I was
Sure.
at check stations, so they go, but a lot of them are further out, in the country, so they don't really drive clear in town to check their deer in.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I was actually just checking trail cameras from last year, checking out when I had peak movement. And it's funny to bring this up with that time frame. 14th through the 19th last year was peak daytime camera activity. And for a lot of places, including Michigan and Minnesota, that's really during their rifle season. Wisconsin, rarely do we start in that 16th, 17th, 18th range. It really depends on when Thanksgiving falls. And so we typically do get, that it's still quiet, it's still peaceful inside the woods at that peak range.
Yeah, that's nice. They've changed, the requirements around here in Nebraska. September 1st to December 31st is archery season, except during the 9 days of rifle, we have to wear orange. And then all of December is muzzleloader, but we don't have to wear
Sure.
orange during muzzleloader season, but the muzzleloaders do.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
It's I don't know why, but that's just kind of the way it is. And
Yeah.
it
Now,
don't hurt when you're
Wisconsin,
out.
no, yeah. Wisconsin, we've got to wear orange anytime there's a gun deer season in our area. So, uh, starting that weekend before Thanksgiving, you're probably in orange in most of the state until second weekend of December. And then you can go back to all camouflage. Most of the gun deer seasons are over. Some places have a holiday hunt. If you're hunting in one of those counties, then over the course of the 24th through the 1st, then you got to have that orange on too. But um, I really haven't seen it change much of deer activity. I think most hunters are pretty good about you know, they're not up there in the tree waving their arms and stuff like that, whether they're wearing blaze orange or camo.
Yeah,
Probably safer for everybody.
yeah. Well, and the deer don't see the orange anyway, so
No.
they're going to catch the movement whether you're wearing orange or full camo. And
Yeah.
you know that, if you had an orange camo, it's like, okay, you're hidden
Oh,
from the deer and everybody else can see you. And
yeah.
generally
Yeah.
for archery, it's fairly safe because more archers are hurt because of their own, well, that's stupidity, I guess.
I knew you were going. I knew you were going there. Yeah, I understand. I mean, hey, we all get excited, right? We all get excited. We all are ready to get going. And um it's really easy to take a shortcut and do something that maybe you weren't planning on doing, or certainly weren't planning to handle if things happen. As soon as archery season begins in that middle of September here, start seeing the Facebook posts and the report pages and things about hey, don't be me. I stepped wrong off of my edge of my tree stand, or up climbing up a ladder stand. And man, there's no reason for a lot of that with great technologies and really affordability with a lot of the stuff, safety equipment
Right.
wise. Really, all hunters should be wary of stuff like that.
Yeah, it's getting in and out of your tree stands. That's the dangerous part, and that's the part you
Mhm.
really have to pay attention to, because it could
Yeah.
easily, and badly. And I've been, younger days, here's this tree stand up here, and it's like, how do you get in here? Well, there was, they'd cut the branches off, and you know how the tree will grow over it. Well, that was the
Yeah.
knob you were trying to step on to get up in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want me to get in there on that? It's like, well, okay. But
Yeah.
now it's like, nah, I ain't getting in that tree stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just started saddle hunting. Actually just started doing it last year. And, as far as safety wise, that's hard to beat, is you're always attached to that tree somehow. And I even use the saddle setup when I'm setting tree stands in on pub or a private land, whether it's mine or a friend of ours. um, I'll use my saddle setup to do it, just because it's just, you feel so much more confident, as long as your equipment is up to par. um,
Right.
it really is a safe way to do it.
Well, you're strapped to the tree. You're not going to fall.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
the advantage of it. One thing that some people don't realize is, you have your safety harness on. It's wrapped around your legs, and it's around your arms and your chest and everything. It's all,
Mhm.
so you're nice and safe. When you fall, you're nice and safe.
Yeah.
Well, there is a little strap that's on your safety harness. It has a little loop on the end of it.
Yep.
That is there so you don't die.
Yeah.
Because what people don't realize is you can be hanging on there and you still die, because it cuts off the circulation.
Yeah.
So that strap is there so you can push on it to release the pressure on you until you can get in there. So you don't have a long time. It keeps you from falling, hitting the ground, but you still got to have a plan on how I'm going to get back onto a safe place so I can get back down.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. And that should be just as much of planning for a hunt as anything else. I mean, I do a lot of ice fishing and stuff like that too. And you just talk about some of the simple things, like telling people where you're going, where you're going to be.
right,
Um, there's a lot of stories out there of people that have been hanging in a tree waiting for somebody to come and get them. They
right,
fortunately did take the right steps, but couldn't quite get that toe over to that branch or to that ladder to get
right,
themselves down. So, or you find yourself in this kind of precarious situation if you've got maybe a cell phone on you, but in a pants pocket. If you're hanging, it's kind of hard to get to that type of stuff. You've got to find
right.
a way to get it. I do tend to put it up kind of in a breast pocket, just so that I, maybe stand a better chance of being able to grab it should I need it. And if I'm being totally honest, there are plenty of times where it's in my hand because I'm playing with it. While I'm sitting in the tree stand these days. But
Yeah, and then you fall and then it's on the ground. So
Then
that
it's
don't
on
mean
the ground
anything.
anyways. You're just looking at it. Maybe an OK Google type thing, you know.
Yeah, I know when I set my safety strap on onto the tree, I'll sit down on the platform and I'll set it the height so I can feel it tugging on me when I'm sitting down. And
Sure.
then I stand up so that it doesn't tug on me, but I'm standing and I can move a little bit. And I can actually lean forward and it'll keep me from falling off the tree stand. So
Mhm.
even if I was to step off the tree stand, I'm not going to go down much past my seat on the tree stand anyway.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And okay, when I put my pegs in, I'm going to put pegs in so the last one I step on, I step down to the tree stand, and then I still have at least one or two more up there to put my hands on. So I step down to the tree stand. So now the scenario is the tree stand actually falls. You have no tree stand, it's on the ground, and you're hanging there. Well, because I can't fall down past my seat, I have my pegs of either right or left side that I
Mhm.
can get to. And you can kind of turn around and get to a peg and then, work your way back down.
Yeah.
So I set up so that even if my tree stand does leave the tree and I'm hanging there on the side of it, I have a peg real close to me.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if I'm in a
Yeah.
ladder stand and the ladder stand falls down, yeah, now you're in a little bit different procurement. But then you can take, if you use like the lineman's line, and
Yep.
you have the press, not that you keep pushing up as you're going
Yep.
up. Well, if you have that there, you can hook onto that and you can put pressure on it and hold and drop it down. And then, lean back. That's what you have pressure on it and hold up above it and slide it
Mhm.
down. So now you can descend that way. It's not optimal, but
Right. And none of that is going to be easy, right? Like that's
no.
all, I mean, but it saved your life. And that's what matters.
Yeah, that's something you have to plan for. And you
Mhm.
know, don't dwell on it, because if you keep thinking about it, you're probably going to make it happen. Um,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you know, but it's like, okay, here's how I set up to prevent this. So I'm not worrying about the tree stand falling. Well, for one, on a tree stand, if it's a strap on one, I'm putting at least two more ratchet straps on it because those
Mhm.
never get tight enough. So I'm going to put
Right.
two more ratchet straps on it. And if I have one that chains on, I'm still going to put at least one more ratchet strap on because I don't want any movement in that tree stand.
Yep.
The only movement I
Yep.
want is from the tree moving.
Yep. Absolutely. And, I'm not a tiny person. So, I'm outfitting all of those stands and stuff like that with straps that I feel like are going to hold, and I mean, that's a whole nother thing. We've gone around and around as a group of friends, replacing a lot of the straps on trees, that have been there for a season, a couple seasons. We really visually inspect that type of stuff to make sure that things are safe. And honestly, I know things are rated a certain way. Go to pick your discount store or whatnot and pick up straps, but I'm really a big proponent of getting a real quality strap to strap those things down,
Right.
paying a little bit more for a quality strap. And that won't be just in the material of the strap; that'll be in the ratchet itself too. If anybody's hauled anything heavy on a trailer and ratcheted something down, you'll probably have come across a time where that strap, those ratchets have not held. You'll find that you got to tighten them up a few different times, and that will happen over time, even in a tree stand. And I certainly don't want to be sitting in it when that happens. So
No. Yeah, that's why you really shouldn't leave your tree stands, there over the summertime, because the tree grows so much and put a lot of pressure
sure,
on the strap. And I know we've had some tree stands in, and when we lost access to the property, I'm taking the pegs out, and one of them actually broke. It's like, okay, it had rusted inside. It just broke. I couldn't crank it out because it just broke off.
sure,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
it was in there a ways, but still,
yeah, it happens.
and
Like I said, I started saddle hunting last year, and that I really enjoyed that aspect of it, being strapped to the tree at all times. I do use a small standing platform that, I mean, I will cinch that sucker tight, and make sure things are good to go there before I step down onto it. And same thing as you said, you take that platform and that's set below the top of your sticks that you're able to step down onto it. I don't know how many different setups I see, pictures or something where they've got that tree stand above their last step, and you're asking for trouble for a lot of
Right.
different reasons right there.
Yeah, that's, you have to climb up it onto your tree stand, and that's never a good thing, because if you're above it now, then, you can, while you're strapped to the tree, because you really should be strapped to trees as you're climbing.
Mhm.
A ladder stand is a little bit more difficult, but they're a little bit safer, but
Sure.
not a whole lot, but a little bit more.
The
It's like climbing up
lifelines
a ladder.
are big. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The lifelines
they're a
are
little
good
bit
for
more
those. Yeah.
difficult on those, because you're quite a ways away from the tree. If you do it, you're going to be swinging into the tree until you
Sure.
get up a little bit higher. But um, if you're using pegs or climbing up on the side of the tree, you know, put one of those lifelines on, and as you move up a little bit, um, move it higher until once you get up in the tree stand, then leave it up higher. And when you come down, just go ahead and keep sliding the knot down, so it's above you. So if you fall, it's not, it's
Mhm.
going to lock pretty close. If you're down below, you got to lock
Yep.
away for it go. And just keep, as you're climbing down, just reach up and, you got both feet in one hand, slide it down and move down and slide it down, and until you're down at the bottom, and unhook from it. When you get ready to go in, hook back up to it. And as you're going, slide it up as high as you can, climb up and slide. And if anything happens, you're hanging on the side of the tree, and you're
Yeah.
you're safe, because you've got pegs that you grab onto. If you miss a peg or one breaks, more likely you miss a peg.
Yeah.
Because you're climbing up, and then I've seen people put steps so far apart, you're actually climbing up to the next step. And that's hard on old guys' knees.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a normal step is 7 to 8 inches.
Yep.
So between one peg and the next one up, you should have 14 to 16 inches is the most you should have, because that's a
Mhm.
normal step going up. And I kind of use my arm as, from one peg over, I kind of do, and then here's the peg, and then I kind of use that as a as a guide that gets me pretty close, so it makes
Sure.
it comfortable to climb up. Wintertime, we put our big heavy coats on, our parkas and bibs on the ground, and now we got to climb up.
Sure.
You're not
Yep.
flexible. You got all that
No.
big bulk on you. So
Yeah.
closer together, more steps. It's a whole lot more work putting in, but
Yeah.
uh, I got a thing that I got, Ameristep makes a little handle thing you can use for cranking them in. And I used
Sure.
to take a battery powered drill and I'd pre-drill the holes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, pre-drill the holes, just make sure it's, smaller than the main part, meaty part of the shaft, the inside
Yeah.
diameter of the shaft.
Absolutely.
So you can screw it in, and it screws in a lot easier. It's going to be just as tight, as something where you're trying to force it in. In fact, it probably
Sure.
gets better threads.
Yeah.
And then crank them in and then climb up. And, that's how I used to put in a lot of pegs. And now I use a little more ladder stands, but
Sure.
because they're a little, I don't have to work so hard to get the steps in.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. We used a lot of ladder stands. We had a piece of property that we hunted. It was a family farm that we hunted for many years. We used a lot of ladder stands, but we adapted from different things too. We had everything from pegs and hang on stands to ladder stands to large fancy blinds, that we, the Taj Mahal type of places with a deck, a heater deck, and the whole 9 yards. It's you take some of those calendars of deer blinds of the North Woods type things, and it would be a pretty good submission. Some of those we had there.
Yeah. Well, and those are good for rifle, because you don't have to get so close.
Absolutely, yeah, and they're comfortability and stuff like that. You do have to think about things, not only safety wise and stuff with the rifle and the archery stuff in some of these stands. There's each one of them that you get into. There's a little different element you got to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you get tree stands that are just a perfect setup. I know one time I set up on a tree stand and one branch going, oh, it's just perfect. I had just a slight little lean back, And it's like, okay, I'm back in my easy chair. I can set my arm up on the chair on the side of it, take a nap. It was comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You feel sick because you're leaning back, you're not leaning forward, and besides you're strapped in really good. So, there's always times when you kind of doze off a little bit because, we're up there bright and early. And I
Just
remember one
comfortable,
time,
right?
yeah, I remember a time I was in a blind, I was turkey hunting, and it was getting close to about time we're getting ready to go, and hadn't seen any turkeys come by and didn't heard anything. And I'm kind of dozing off, and all of a sudden had a plastic decoy out there. All of a sudden something smacked that decoy. I opened my eyes, a coyote attacked the turkey decoy.
No.
Yeah. And I saw,
I'll be
man, I
darned.
could have shot a coyote. I hadn't fallen asleep.
No kidding. No kidding. That's crazy. And those are awesome stories though, too. I just think of so many different times I've been able to get out in the woods, and what archery hunting has really allowed me to do is just spend that much more time out in the woods. I my first bits of hunting, as I mentioned at the very beginning, with my dad taking so much time off to raise kids, I wasn't really brought up in a world where I'd go out and small game hunt or anything like that. My first really introduction was rifle hunting deer. And that's such a small portion of Wisconsin. I mean, the rifle hunts in 9 days here in the state of Wisconsin. We've added a few different seasons since I was 11 and 12 years old, but the archery world has just given me so many more days, so many more times in the woods, and to observe this great creation we have to sit in. And I think it's cool to be able to bring my son along in that journey. And it's just been an awesome opportunity to have that chance.
Yeah, it is when you can take your kids out in the forest with you. That's always nice. When I had my son out in the tree, I set a tree stand for me. I set a tree stand ready so he could climb up and climb over. And he had all the covered up. You couldn't really see anything. It was just so camoed up there. You couldn't really see anything. And that's when I give him the call is here, you call. You can't mess it up. If they're coming in, just don't do anything if they're coming in. Let them come. But if they hear it, they're either going to ignore it, come to it, or go away.
Yeah.
And we don't know.
Yeah. That's it. And the worst case scenario goes away, but you didn't really ruin anything. You didn't wreck, you didn't wreck an opportunity. Chances are it wasn't coming your way anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had time when I seen this little buck, and he was kind of walking down this trail away from me, and he got down a little ways, and I forget which call he used. I think he'd grunt, and then I heard him turn to the right and start walking, and I did a little bit more, and I heard him turn, and I got him all the way on the other side of me. I couldn't shoot over there, but as I got him turned around, and it wasn't too much later, here comes the big buck down the trail that I couldn't shoot on.
Yeah.
I was playing with the one, and another one come in, and it's like, you come in where I can't shoot you because I don't have any shooting lanes over there. It's my right-hand side. I'm right-handed, it's hard to shoot them right-handed shots.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
So I didn't set up really. I didn't clear anything because to get turned around and take that kind of shot was just not very conducive to doing it. So I didn't bother clearing a lane for something I couldn't really shoot anyway. And he comes down and it's like, oh.
No, I get it. No, I really, like I said, I've enjoyed the time archery hunting. I mean, obviously in the state of Wisconsin, it gives you just that chance to be in that peak, chase phase and experience the rut and really better weather and stuff like that too, than we typically get for gun deer season and stuff like that. And I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I've had working in the archery shops to just kind of pick up on some on things that others have made into bad habits and not make those same mistakes. And honestly, one of the coolest parts about working in the archery shop was helping people get involved in it for the very first time. Was watching them walk through and maybe they did see something online that spurred their interest or whatnot, and watching some of these aha moments, whether it be with kids or with women that would come in, and even young men that would come in that hadn't done it before, and give themselves that opportunity to enjoy the woods a little bit more often than just taking the rifle out.
Yeah, it does allow you to have a lot more time in the forest and in the woods. One of the things that us archers get to see that the rifle hunters don't normally get to see is because we're camoed up, we're sitting still. Animals just either landing on you or walking by or can't figure out what you are. We get to see a lot of that stuff in there that you don't really see if you're not a bow hunter, because you aren't sitting in a tree just kind of observing everything. We're snipers basically, because we're hiding in a roost and a target comes by and we shoot it.
That's right.
That's what a sniper does.
Yeah.
We're not
Absolutely.
spotting and stock, and some do spot and stock, but it's a little bit. I don't think majority do that. There's some that do and do it very well, and it's a different challenge. To spot them and stalk them, and right here for the whitetails, they're kind of predictable. So it's not there. But if we go out in western Nebraska where the muleys are at, you're not going to sit and wait for them. You might wait a month for when they come walking by where you're at.
Yeah, hard to ambush them that way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're not very patternable.
The
whitetails. So you got like, oh, there's one. It's like, okay, which way is it going? Can we head it off?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to get in the car and drive over there to head it off.
Right.
And then walk the rest of the way.
Right. Yep. No doubt.
Yeah, that's a completely different animal to hunt. And then
I'm
they got
sure.
the Sika deer, and then there are all kinds of different deer, and they're all hunting a little different. Down south they hunt them differently than we do up here at north, and they have warmer weather, so you have to consider that. Up here during early season, September, and actually most of October, it's been really warm. So you don't really want to do an afternoon hunt. If you get one, you got to find it, because it's hot. Monday it was in the 80s, and it's supposed to be, this Saturday they're predicting snow. So you never know. And if you go to morning hunt, at least you have daylight to find it. But you still don't have a lot of time. If you don't make a good hit and don't find it right away, it's going to be bad. It's oil on you. So that's what's nice about a little bit colder weather, that you get up there and we get here, is, during the later season, is if you don't find it, you can at least come back the next morning. And it's going to still be good because it was cold enough.
We're headed into that time frame here in Wisconsin. This weekend looks like a really good weekend to hunt. I was texting with a buddy of mine. I circled the forecast from Friday to Saturday, and I said, whoa, man, a lot of deer are going to die on Saturday, because I think we got a high of 61 on Friday and a high of like 37 on Saturday. So it's and the fact that it's Saturday, you're just going to naturally have a number of more people out in the woods, and it's going to be an interesting time. And really, it's going to be a nice change of pace for October, because it's been relatively mild.
It starts getting a little rainy and snowy, and it's like that's when you get excited about being out in the woods, because the deer are going to be moving and trying to get some food, and you just got to hope that where you're at, they're coming through during the daylight.
That's right. Yeah. And then chances are, a big front like that, they'll be on their feet. Through most of the Midwest, I'd really recommend watching that weather forecast this week. And if you got a chance to get out in the woods, man, get on that backside of that front and hunt away.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's been kind of your most memorable hunt you've been on?
Most memorable, I was probably talking about it just the other day. I wish I could tell you it was an archery hunt, but it was a gun deer season hunt. It was the very last hunt with my grandfather. It was an antlerless only hunt My grandfather had been going through about a year and a half, almost 2 years worth of chemotherapy at that point for stomach cancer. Um, and in his 80s, just he was 81 at the time, and he would not give up. I had told him multiple times, "You do not have to sit out here, Grandpa. Like I'll just call you. I know how to operate the tractor. You don't have to come down and pick up any deer or anything like that." And he just would not. He would not sit out on that one. And I remember I had a really good night. I had shot 4 deer that night and missed on a fifth. And uh, he came down, and I remember him just being so excited. I mean, I've shot a lot of deer in that property. It wasn't it wasn't like a, you know 200-inch deer party, anything like that. These were just a bunch of does. I remember him being so excited and could not wait to jump on that tractor and drive it down and help pick up these deer. And I just will not forget. I could tell he's just freezing, but he was so happy to be a part of that, because I think he knew that was going to be his last time to be able to hunt. I, of course, didn't necessarily foresee it as much. I was really hoping to be able to get a chance to, another season with him, but I think he kind of saw that writing on that wall. And that was in December of 2019. He passed in August of 2020, so just before we got back into another archery season hunt. But there was another really memorable moment for me and my grandfather. It was again on that same property, opening day of archery season. um I was sitting in a stand where I was watching over a water hole, and had some young bucks come out, some little forkhorns come out, and they were sparring when they met each other at the water hole. It was a really, really neat thing to just watch. It was one of the first times I had seen as much of that activity as I had. And this was, mid-September in Wisconsin. And when those bucks had left, I kind of just thought, the night was going to calm down, wasn't going to get much more activity. A real nice wide deer came out. I didn't know what he was points wise. He was just so wide. Ultimately ended up being a 6-pointer. He had never grown brow tines. He just got
Oh,
wide and tall. And I shot him. And after I shot him, there was probably 20-25 minutes left of daylight. I shot him. He runs off and back into our swamp. And within 2-3 minutes, I see my grandpa walking towards me. And I thought, well, how did he know I shot? I know we were, hundreds and hundreds of yards away from each other. And how did he get down so fast? Like, there's no reason for him to get down. We still got 20 minutes, what. And so I start climbing down, and I meet him down below my stand. And I was like, he went in, I just started telling him about my hunt. I said, he went in right there by the, by the pond. And he goes, "Oh, you got one too?" I was like, "Oh, you got one?" He's like, "Yeah." I never for a minute thought he got down because he shot a deer. He ended up actually shooting a spike in velvet. And he's like, I only shot it because I'd never seen a deer in velvet while I was sitting out in the woods. And he's at this time he's probably 75 years old. So however many seasons that is that he's had the chance to be out there. Never seen a velvet buck while out hunting. So he saw it. He wanted to harvest it. He made a great shot on it. And so that night we both tagged out on opening day. And now that he's passed, that buck, actually, my aunt decided as a gift to him, she was going to have it mounted. And so I have that shoulder mount, and I have my mount from the big wide 6-pointer next to each other at my house. And so that reminds me every time I get a chance to take a look at that, with some good memories with my grandpa. And he's the one who I did most of my archery hunting with. In fact, this upcoming weekend would have normally been a weekend I would head to his place, and we would get out and hunt together. And he'd have a small window because this was anniversary weekend, and with my grandma. And so he had to be back at certain times. There were certain parameters that he had to adhere to, but he was allowed to allowed to hunt this coming weekend. So great memories like that, and stuff I certainly won't ever forget.
Yeah, that's a amazing story and a memory that will stick with you for a long time. And
Sure.
that's kind of the stories that we like to hear, and it's so exciting that you was able to do that, and to
Yeah.
spend that time with him. And
Yep.
it's amazing that you were able to spend that last hunt, and it was such a great hunt with him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a real neat moment. And uh I don't think my grandma was real happy that he decided to come out and drive the tractor down or whatnot, because it took him a long time to warm back up that night.
Oh,
But it was fun. It was fun to have him there.
yeah, it was worth it to him.
Absolutely, it was.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it was.
Well, follow up with that. It's like you say, they even ask, what's the most challenging hunt you've been on?
Oof. You know, I did I went elk hunting out in Colorado back in 2019 as well, and it's the first time that I've done a Western hunt. Went out to the White River National Forest, and really it was just a wild experience compared to hunting the woodlands of Wisconsin. Um, just so many different aspects of hunting elk versus whitetail. It was a rifle hunt. Unfortunately, during most of the archery seasons out there, I'm still running fishing tournaments, and so it's hard to draw those tags. But going out there and just battling uh, battling the elements of altitude, weather constantly changing, winds constantly changing, and then you got plenty of public pressure. That time of year was about this time of year that I left for that hunt, so that's third rifle season in Colorado. So those deer have kind of been, or those elk rather, have been kind of pushed around quite a bit at that time. And you know, I had a cow tag in my pocket. I did end up taking a cow, but it felt like probably the most exhaustive uh, hunt in those number of days as I've ever had anywhere, because you're on your feet all the time. Uh, you're out there trying to learn something so foreign compared to hunting whitetails over farmland, or even big timber whitetails. It's just so much different. I learned a lot. I really would like to get back out there and do that again. Um, but I would have to rank that as certainly one of my most challenging.
Yeah, that would be challenging, running up and down the mountains, especially when you're not used to it. And
Yeah.
I know as a kid we used to go to mountains all the time, but now I'm not sure I want to try
Yeah, right, right.
it.
Yeah. There's nowhere, it's hard to practice that type of stuff in Wisconsin.
Right.
There's uh I've done a lot of I've done some international fishing competitions, and you find yourself in places doing things that you can't practice. No way
Right.
of putting that into motion, and kind of learn on the fly.
It's nice when you go someplace like that to have somebody that's
Yeah,
been there and done that. And that's when it's worth getting a guide to at least get you onto the place,
for
help
sure.
you
For
from
sure.
not getting
Yeah,
lost, and keep on track, and learn what they're
absolutely.
doing. And you know have a live trail camera basically.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be a challenge for sure, getting out there and climbing up and down the mountains. And
Yeah.
it's hard enough to up and down the hills that we have around here.
Yep. Yep.
They can be pretty steep. We've got some that's pretty steep around here too, that we have to go up and down once in a while. And fortunately, where I'm
Absolutely.
I'm hunting, and the place I'm hunting, I can basically drive the four-wheeler to where I'm hunting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there,
That was what was nice at one point on the family farm, being able to do that, and a little bit different in some of the places that we go now.
yeah. It's kind of nice to be able to take a four-wheeler and bring your stuff there, and you don't have to worry, park it a ways away and then walk down to your stand. So at least it's not parked where you're at. And
Sure. Yep,
but
for sure.
they they get used to stuff being in fields anyway.
Absolutely.
one time where I parked my car by a pond, and we're hunting outside the tracks, and I'm sitting in my tree stand. I can see my truck, the deer walking right behind my truck.
Sure.
They didn't care. They didn't care.
Yep. 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 It's amazing what deer will do.
Yeah, even in cities too, they'll be running around, and once in a while you'll catch them, in your backyard in some places. Yeah. Now
For
here I
sure.
haven't caught it here, but we got a lot of fields around us, so they're not going to really
Sure.
come into town. There's too many fields.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Good deal.
Yeah, whenever I leave, no matter which direction I go, I got to drive by fields, cornfields or bean fields.
Sure.
Can't even get
Well,
out of the
that's just-
village.
a lot of standing old standing timber from paper mills and stuff like that right around by me, and so a lot of pines and things like that, and black and red oak trees and bur oaks and stuff like that we hunt around here.
Nice trees to hunt in. The
Yeah,
pine's
absolutely.
not
I mean,
pine's not quite so much, but
yeah, there's not a lot of cover in some of those, but we don't have a lot of white pines, a lot of red pines and stuff like that. They kind of grow up and get a little less crowded in that lower third of the tree, but a lot of good oaks. And I'd love to have some white oak trees around here, but the deer will still eat all the acorns out of those black and red oaks, so when there's nothing left to eat anyways.
yeah, I know that's in one tree stand, and there's a pine tree, that I could kind of reach. Every time I get in, I'd grab a couple branches, a couple of the leaves, and just kind of rub it in my fingers a little bit, and a little cover natural scent, because it's naturally there, and
For sure.
little bit extra cover, and besides it kind of smelled good too.
Yeah,
Smell the
for
pine
sure,
instead of the
for
dirt.
sure. That's right.
So what you do a lot of fishing tournaments then, tell us about some of those, because I'm sure a lot of my listeners also fish.
Sure. Yeah, no, so I'm the tournament director for the Masters Walleye Circuit National Walleye Tour. That's kind of the two primary tournament series that I operate, or that I help facilitate. And so the Masters Walleye Circuit's been around since 1984. It's a 2-person team tournament. We go everywhere from Colorado to New York running events. All depends on the seasons and the years that we put together a schedule. It starts in March every year, goes till October every year, or just about October every year. And the National Walleye Tour, it's a pro co event. So you got your pro level $1,700 entry fee, and your co-angler or amateur angler level at $500 entry fee. And you guys fish together during the 2-day event. That's $100,000, basically to win event on that National Walleye Tour and the Masters Walleye Circuit. It varies widely depending on how many teams are in it, but typically we're doing $10,000 or more to win on the Masters Walleye Circuit side. We get a chance to see a lot of great bodies of water. Obviously, making stops at Lake Erie and the Bay of Green Bay and Mississippi River and Lake Oahe, things like that. But we've been out to Ogallala and Lake McConaughey in years past, in Nebraska. Not a lot of water sitting in that body of water right now. So
No.
I'd like to see a little bit more snowfall up in the mountains, and get a little bit more water traveling through that whole area would be nice. Both in that lower section of the Midwest, and then even Oahe in the Missouri River system is pretty low right now. Really need
Yeah, it is.
some good snowfalls to help alleviate that.
Yeah, we can definitely use some water around here. It's getting kind of dried up, and some of the lakes are just, even some of the little smaller lakes, you can definitely tell that their water levels are pretty low.
For sure.
We do have one lake they put in not too long ago that it's up to capacity, because they keep it at capacity, and only if it flows over do they let it down. So
Sure.
it's pretty much this level it's going to be, and as long as there's water feeding it, then it's going to stay at that level, because there's really no gates that I can tell that'll let out even more water. So it's
Right.
it's definitely not for flood control.
Yeah.
It won't control anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's uh, kind of interesting too. As when I had my store, first year we run a bass tournament and didn't really, I didn't do it more than 1 year because the guy that had it before me did kind of run it down and, not run it very well. So didn't have much
Sure.
participation. And I was like, okay, this is too much work for what I'm getting out of it. I'm not getting much out of it. And
Sure.
uh, the people would come in the tournament, they would come in and they'd pay for the tournament and leave, never buy anything. They didn't buy any supplies from me. And I
Sure.
had, I
Sure.
had, bait and tackle and archery and everything. So they weren't even buying any parts from me, for their fishing,
Sure.
their jigs and stuff. So and like,
Yeah.
okay, this is not getting a return on anything. And, I just didn't want to put the work into, make it into something really big. And, it's
Right.
already, it
Right.
was bigger, it used to be quite a bit bigger than, the guy before, he'd show up late and, just,
Sure.
and people quit going to those kind of tournaments. And it's like, okay, yeah, I don't have time for this. So I
That's
didn't do
it's a lot.
I had to do it the first year because he'd already had it set up.
Sure. Sure.
So I
Yeah.
had to go do them, and we're driving around and do all these, and it was kind of interesting, but for the amount of driving I was doing and time was gone, yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't worth my time. But
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a lot of. It can be a challenge for one-off events like that. When we do it every weekend, it's for us it almost seems second nature at that point. But yeah, one-off events, I don't know how some of those folks do it because it ends up being time consuming, all consuming, really, when
yeah,
it comes to getting that stuff together. And then
we had, I think we had 4 or 5 different events was scheduled for that year, and
sure,
it's one of those things that if I really wanted to really go with it, I could have, started doing stuff to make it get a little bit better and, getting some
sure,
prizes and stuff like that. But at that point, it wasn't paying. So
yeah,
um me, I'd rather go catfishing than bass fishing anyway. So
yeah, for sure, for sure,
I was, I was more interested in catfishing than I was in bass fishing. And here we're running bass tournaments. And so me and a buddy of mine that worked for me at the store is one of my shooters. We'd go around and run some leases. Was there, and then while they're out, we'd go, fishing for catfish or something. And we wouldn't fish for bass because they were fishing for bass, but we'd go out
sure,
catfishing while we're doing it, and then we'd come back and and he
absolutely,
was the bass fishing, I was the catfishing. And so we'd go out go for catfish, and I'm catching them all, and he's not catching anything. I was like, well,
sure,
Randy, you got to throw your hook in the crap.
yeah,
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 the master, bounce it off a tree, let it drop down. And
absolutely,
that's where the cats are at, not where the bass are at.
that's right, that's
So
right,
but going out bass fishing, he'd catch them all day, and I was like, I wouldn't catch any because
sure, sure, for sure,
it's just what you used to. And I like to use liver for catfishing, and just a single hook. You
sure,
got the
yeah,
the treble hooks, and they got the liver hooks that have a couple of things, and you fold them over. No, it's real easy. I can cast that liver a long ways, because you
yeah,
hook it and twist it, hook it, twist, hook and twist. The memory's in there.
yeah,
And you just don't use a lot of wrist action when you throw it. The whole
yeah,
arm, like,
yeah,
it's
gentle,
like a
yeah,
tennis racket, not a racquetball racket. You don't use
that's right,
wristling. So you cast it out there, and nice about that is that you just sit there, cast it out there, and it's like sit back and wait.
that's right, that's right,
You can relax.
absolutely,
Kind of
absolutely,
like archery.
that's
You
right.
get up there and get ready. You get your bow ready. You sit there and you wait.
Hurry up and wait.
Then you shoot and
Absolutely.
go.
That's right. That's right.
That's that's kind of fun. Just being outside doing stuff like that is a lot of fun. And
Absolutely.
so, what would you like to tell our audience? If you give them a little bit of wisdom.
A little bit of wisdom. There was a really great angler that fished in both the Masters Walleye Circuit, the National Walleye Tour, and actually he did a lot of crappie tournaments as well. Um, and there are some people that you would absolutely look up to as a pillar in the community, pillar in an organization, and he ended up also enjoying archery hunting, doing stuff like that, and he fell out of a tree, and he used his platform on the fishing tournaments until he died of cancer, to just continue to preach safety. We all are so excited about being able to get out and do different things and have all these great hobbies, and the technologies out there to be able to do some amazing stuff. And the one thing so many people ignore is safety. Like we talked about earlier, the lifelines, the checking your stuff. I mean, so a bow doesn't blow up on you. Whether it's your string or cams or limbs or any of it, you gotta be safe about it. Check your stuff the next time you get, before you go out, and make sure you got a plan, and you can enjoy everything multiple times, as long as you're able to come back each and every time.
That's a good point. This safety, and
Yeah.
and you got to be aware of what's out there too. That's one of the things that happens a lot is it's starting to get light, and it's like, okay, that looks like a deer. That's a deer. That's a deer. No, that's a tree, but that's a branch.
Yeah.
Or going the other way. It's like, okay, now I know that was a tree, but it sure looks like a deer. And then too, you got to make sure of your target when you shoot. Here many years ago, we had a guy that got shot with an arrow, and
Unreal.
And in the store, the guy that got shot come in the store, and the guy that shot him both had come into my store, so I got to hear both sides of the story.
Wow.
And it was a new archer. He didn't really realize that you've got to things happen, and the guy was walking out not after shooting time, but right at that last little bit of shooting time.
Sure.
And the guy that shot him thought it was a deer, but he didn't completely 100% identify that it was a deer, and he shot and he hit him. And the guy has a little limp, because where he got shot, and
sure.
And I forget, in one of the lower extremities someplace. But
sure.
I know what happened by what they were saying. It's like he heard it coming. He thought it was a deer. It looked like it could have been a deer, but it's that your trees turn into deer at that dusk and dawn.
Yeah.
What you think is a deer is actually not a deer. And it's like, you got to be 100% sure of what your target is and what's behind your target.
Yeah. Absolutely do.
If you have a doe come walking in and there's a fawn on the other side and you don't see the fawn, and you got a tag for one deer, and you shoot that doe and it also kills the fawn, you just illegally killed a deer.
Yeah.
Because you got both of them.
Yeah.
Will the game warden, touch your brake? might not, but it's your job to identify what's past there. Same thing when you're rifle hunting. I had one time, it's like, here's this deer. It was at the crest of the hill, and it's like, I can't shoot it.
Sure.
It's within range, but that bullet is going to go through that deer and land somewhere on the other side that I can't control. So I had to pass, because I couldn't shoot. Now, if it had been down a little bit, so it would have gone into the ground, that'd be a different story. And the same thing, with archery, you got to make sure what's on the other side. If you have two standing side by side, you got to wait till they separate, because you can't take a chance of hitting two. Now, if you have a tag for two deer, go for it. Except the second one, if you're in a tree stand, you're not going to normally get the second one. But if you're on the ground, it's you can shoot straight. Still, it's like I said, you got to be safe and go from there.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
that's what I can leave you with. By the way, the gentleman's name, Tommy Scarless, was the one, and some people know him from hunting, some people know him from fishing, but he's the one who really instilled in me, we got to be safe about these things.
Right.
Life can change in a heartbeat, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, it can. Well, it's been great talking with you. I'm sure others have enjoyed the stories. I know I enjoyed the stories, and we'll just have to talk a little bit later. And remember, you can watch this on my podcast on Learn to Fix It Yourself. You can listen to it on Audible, as well as on Spotify and other places to get them. So there's always some way to listen to it or watch it. Now, I kind of like watching them because it's, you get to see everybody and talk to them. But it's been really great having you on.
I appreciate it, Roy. I really do. I hope folks get out and enjoy it. And as I mentioned, looking at the calendar, looking at that weather, if you're in the Midwest this week, boy, I'd look at getting in a tree stand here in the next few days. No doubt about it. Going to be a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on. My name is Roy Canterbury. I've been hosting on Arch Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.